everybody! Welcome to Common Censored. My name's Lee Camp. I'm joined by, let's see who it is over there. Oh, it's Eleanor Goldfield.
Are you surprised?
This is the show where we talk censored stories and people, sensible solutions, and common ground movements to fight and build.
And sometimes other stuff. You know what I should have said is my favorite line, well, one of my favorite lines from Real Genius, when they ask him if he's who he is, and he says, well, I hope so, because I'm wearing his underwear.
Yes.
That's what I should have said.
That would have been the better response.
I know.
Okay, we're going to tape this again.
Okay.
Ready, everybody? Welcome, everybody, to the show. And I don't know. I didn't like plan an intro. I think maybe we should just get going. Oh, thanks for all the kind comments about Eleanor's awesome video. I don't know why I'm thanking you. It's not like I did much, but
well, you haven't sent me those comments.
Oh yeah,
I wanna see.
People have loved it. They love the video for Pyre, which you just heard
shucks.
part of, and you can watch it, but also get the album at artkillingapathy.com.
Yes,
but
indeed.
Speaking of pyres,
Pyres and fires and shit gone wrong.
Let's just start with some pyres and fires.
Yeah. So, y'all might have noticed that shit is on fire. And if you didn't,
hey folks, welcome, and we're sorry about the shit on fire. But
if you didn't, shit's on fire. And I found an article about that really is like a perfect cross section of the prison state, capitalism, and climate chaos. So
it's always nice when those all come together like a Voltron of shittiness.
Exactly. A what?
Voltron.
What is a Voltron?
Like Transformers? There was a competitor called Voltron that was these kind of robots that would all connect together into one giant robot when they needed to fight. And so it's like a bunch of robots coming together. It's a great cartoon in the 80s. You really should. I think you should go back and watch the entire back catalog.
Yeah, I'll put that on my to-do list.
Yeah, Voltron.
In the meantime, however, so this is a statement from L.A. County Fire Chief Daryl Osby, who said that L.A. County would normally have 24 inmate firefighting crews, but is sadly down to 8, as many were sent home from prison after the state granted them early release because of the pandemic. That has forced the department to dip into its budget to train more paid crew members. Emphasis there on the word paid. Yes, these are literally like slave firefighters that are literally thrown into a fire like from prison.
We've talked about this before, but it's amazing to hear them be like, we had to dip into our budget to actually pay people to put the fires out.
Right. We had to pay people to risk their lives.
The other people we used to have, we didn't have to give them shit. We gave them a sandwich, and they said, oh my God, it's the best day of my life. Now these people are asking for like, I don't know, 20. Someone said like $20 an hour. It's a lot of. We don't.
Meh. So yeah. So this is. This is such an amazing comment. Like basically, you're saying, "Oh, bummer, we couldn't use slave labor via the prison industrial complex because COVID forced." And this is not ubiquitous, right? California was not, like just one of many or all who sent home prisoners because of the pandemic. The calls were based on two things. One, just basic human rights, like people shouldn't be in prison for stealing a fucking sweater or for selling a plant, etc. But the other one was, hey, prisons are literal breeding grounds for COVID, and more packed that they are, they like the far more dangerous they are. And the way that the private prison industrial complex works is that they need to be packed all the time. So they're always overflowing because literally these prison companies have a deal with states that say if you don't keep them, what is it, like 98%
the private prisons,
filled,
yeah.
then you owe us a shit ton of cash to make up for, our loss of profit off of literal human beings in cages. So...
And back when she was the top cop of California, Kamala Harris had some pressure to release more prisoners because it was so overcrowded. And her office had said they couldn't do that because it would influence California labor dynamics. Like there wouldn't be enough laborers if we don't have prison laborers, slave laborers, basically, out of the prison system. And Kamala, once that came forward, has claimed she didn't know what her office was doing, which I'm sure is accurate. You know how it is. You never know what your office is doing when you're running the office, right?
I know that's always the argument that these people give. Like the governor of Michigan didn't realize what was going on in Flint. The CEO of Nestle had no idea that they were using slave labor. It's like, that's so convenient that you can just throw up your arms and be like, look, I was busy on my yacht at the time. I was unaware that there were children as slaves looking for chocolate. I just didn't know.
Welcome to capitalism. Slogan, carefully crafted idiocy. Carefully crafted ignorance. We don't know all of the horrible things we're doing. We're just doing so many horrible things all of the time that I can't possibly be expected to know of all of them. It'd be ridiculous.
Yeah.
So, but, I mean, this is a perfect story of a perfect horror show on just so many levels. You've got the prison labor, you've got the climate change. I mean, California, we knew going in was going to be horribly on fire, which will happen every year now because of climate change. It'll just keep getting worse. And, as climate change is wreaking havoc on our society, different ways in different areas of the country, it will be left to the poor and the persecuted and the maligned to do the dirty work of trying to save us, trying to make it livable in this country for the upper classes,
right.
Most specifically. Yeah, I mean, we're seeing this more and more. It will be left to the prison inmates to fight the fires in California. It will be left to the construction crews, even if they are getting paid above a minimum wage. It will be left to these construction crews to try and, make the roads work as they all collapse, or the bridges work as they collapse, or the buildings stay up, as we saw in Florida as they collapse. It'll be left to the farm workers to try and actually continue to produce these incredibly inefficient crops in more and more heat and more drought. It'll be left to people helping out at mutual aid, which I get are not exclusively poor people, but it's certainly not a ton of rich people out in mutual aids, helping people get groceries and get needs in these incredibly difficult times. And so, I mean, this is, again, how the spiral of capitalism works. It exploits to the nth degree, to infinity, and then as the systems start to collapse, it is left to the bottom 50% to try and make the society livable still,
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, the wildfires are really a perfect example of that. Not even just trying to pull from the poor, but literally pulling slave labor to try and fight these fires. I think it not only speaks to the mentality around climate chaos, but it also speaks to the mentality around people who are imprisoned, that you are that disposable that if you die in a wildfire, who the fuck cares, because you were just taking up space in prison. There was I'm reading a book right now called The Many-Headed Hydra, which talks about some of the advents of capitalism in the late 1500s, early 1600s. And I found it really interesting that one of the things that they would call people who had been hanged, mostly for things like begging, for being quote unquote vagabonds, which basically just means that like you are homeless and don't have the means to stay off the street. And of course, like witches and shit like that. But they would call them, after the hanging, they would call them dead commodities. And I think that that's just such a, like a perfect fucking example of this mentality that like doesn't look at people as people, but they look at them as tools in perpetuating the system of capitalism and upholding the system of capitalism at all costs, right? It doesn't matter that the climate is it's crumbling around us. We have to uphold capitalism. And if that means that we kill off hundreds of thousands of people, so be it, because we must maintain capitalism.
Yeah, and one other point from this story before we move to the next thing is this is yet another example of our country not even barely preparing, doing the bare minimum to prepare for climate change destruction that it's not like is coming. It is here and has been here for many years. I mean, obviously it wasn't quite this bad for many years, but it's like fucking everyone sees this coming. There's like 12 people in Ohio and Donald Trump who don't think this is real and isn't getting worse. But we know it's here. We know the places are going to be flooding. We know the places are going to be drought stricken. We know there's going to be these endless fire seasons. And we had a tornado warning here in Washington, D.C. for, I think, the first time I've ever seen the other day. And yet there's just like zero preparation just about for fucking any of this. Because our quote-unquote leaders, our politicians, they are meaningless on this front, which is just about the most important thing going on in this world right now. In many ways. There's some that are closely tied with it, but and they're just meaningless because all they can do is it's a combination of deny it's happening and, say a few things, a few words in a speech, and then basically continue to do nothing. And I mean, it's, it's all been said before, but we're going to have to keep saying it, that it's like our society could get together and actually have a plan for both, obviously, stopping the emissions that are causing climate change, but also dealing with what's already here. Right. Here's how we're going to deal with it. Here's how we're going to make sure that poor people aren't dying in heat waves. Here's how we're going to make sure that we have remarkably trained, incredible fire brigades. Here's how we're going to deal with the fact that the places are drought-stricken, considering we waste, most of our clean water on things like watering, big ag fields when we don't need to use. Yes, you can't use toxic water on fields, on crops, but you don't need crystal clean, fresh water either.
And you also shouldn't be farming the way that you're farming, because the way that we're farming requires far more water. It requires chemicals because we're not doing it in a sustainable way that actually works with the earth and work with the land and the water and the air. If you farmed sustainably in a regenerative way, then you wouldn't need as much water, and you certainly wouldn't need all the chemicals that then cause runoff, that then acidify the ocean. You get the point. But the way that we're doing things, broadly speaking, from fighting fires to planting tomatoes, is just fucked.
Yeah. And, far less meat, like factory farming meat, it uses insane amounts of water. I mean, I know we've discussed this before, but it's like all of that could be in a legit plan to deal with this. And instead, there is no legit plan. There is barely anything. Even the Green New Deal put forward in Congress is not nearly enough, and it's mocked by even the other Democrats. It's
no pun intended. It's a very watered down version than the concept of the Green New Deal that the Democrats brought forward is actually a Green New Deal that members of the Green Party and other leftists had created, and that one actually talked about capitalism. It actually talked about these issues. And of course, the Democrats are not going to talk about capitalism. So the version that not everybody, but the version that a lot of people are all, woohoo about is not enough. And we can't even get that, right? Popular Resistance wrote a really good article about the shortcomings of the Green New Deal. And I recommend everybody read it, because I think it's important to recognize that, if you're fighting for things legislatively, that's fair. But we should be very clear on what we're fighting for, legislatively speaking. There have been several bills, for instance, that were put forward under the guise of being Medicare for all, but they're not if you actually look at them. What we need is blanket universal health care. So let's be clear on which bills address that and which don't. Let's be clear about which bills actually address the root causes of climate change and which ones don't, because why fight so hard for something that isn't going to fucking fix anything, that isn't going to mitigate the pain and suffering of, the lack of healthcare or the, of climate chaos and things like that. So I definitely recommend folks check out that article on Popular Resistance.
And hilariously, the thing that they claimed they got during Force the Vote, when they refused to force the vote for Medicare for All, the thing they claimed they got instead of forcing a vote for Medicare for All was PAYGO was suspended. They got a promise from Nancy Pelosi to suspend PAYGO if the Green New Deal were to get passed in Congress.
Can you just real quick comment on what PAYGO is?
PAYGO is the completely right-wing bullshit idea that they have to show where they're going to get the money, not just show, but put it in the bill where they're going to get the money to pay for these things. So it's designed to basically make it impossible to do anything that would actually benefit society, because they all go, well, we don't know where we're going to get the money. I don't know where we'll find it. But of course, that's bullshit. They have all the money in the world. I mean, it's laughable. When the pandemic hit and they wanted to give trillions of dollars to Wall Street, they just gave trillions of dollars to Wall Street. So, it's laughable. But anyway, my larger point was that while they were refusing to force the vote, they got a guarantee of PAYGO, of suspending PAYGO if they got Green New Deal in front of Congress. If this happens, if that happens, and one day if this happens, and it's a watered down Green New Deal to begin with, and so it'd be like, well, we can't fight for Medicare for all right now, but we did get Nancy Pelosi to promise to provide us with a typewriter to type up the bill that we want to put in front of her that she might then allow to go through Congress.
Well,
but until that time, we didn't have any way to type it. So we had to borrow her typewriter, but she wouldn't let us borrow it. So we got a promise that we could use the typewriter.
Well, Lee, at least a typewriter is environmentally nice. I just pulled this up. I had reposted this. This is a meme by Decadent Socialist that I posted on my Instagram a few days ago, and it's a picture of a skeleton that's looking in a mirror, and it says 30 more years and progressives will have the majority of the Democratic Party, and that's when the real change begins. And it's like, yeah, right, because I have time to sit here and fucking literally burn alive while progressives or so-called progressives in the Democratic Party argue about whether there can even be a fucking committee to acknowledge climate change.
How many people, as the fires are coming over the hills in California towards their town or their area, are they leaning over to the guy next to them and going, well, next year, I think in the midterms, if we just get a few more Democrats into office, I think this is going to all change.
As you're fleeing your home.
Yeah, as you're packing things up, as your cat's on fire. So, a couple of quick notes. If you feel like you're getting even $1 worth of content out of this show, please go to liberapay.com/LeeCamp, LIBERAPAY.com/LeeCamp. That is the only way this show is sustained. Also, Rad Indie Media is here, radindiemedia.com. We've just kind of launched it. We're doing a little soft launch, and most of the articles we cover are at radindiemedia.com. Our stuff's there, stuff from great outlets. And you'll see, it's not meant to be complicated. It's meant to be a simple way for you to get your news each day. So it's kind of like a front page of the leftist internet over at radindiemedia.com. That's INDIE media. So Rad Indie Media, like radical. You get it. And one other note is we've been raising money on our live streams to help people who need it. If you are someone who needs just a little help, struggling a little bit, then email comments answered at protonmail.com. I always like to make it clear that we're not talking about thousands of dollars. We're able to give most people that email about $80 to help them get through maybe the weekend or something. If they're really struggling, some people are able to get a new tire or two for their car so that they can keep driving at their job and things like that. So, commoncensored at protonmail.com. And with that, since this is a little bit of a shorter episode, let's keep it going.
All right. So this is just another little highlight for the folks
Pick
who
me
are
up? Is it a pick me up?
a little pick me up for the Build Back Better folks, the rah-rah
Build Back
Biden
Better.
folks. So Biden has, under Biden's administration, there has been more military gear sent to police than under, okay, let me restart that sentence. I'm looking at a graph, and it's hard to vocalize a graph, or especially if you're like me, and A, I'm not that visual, and B, I fucking hate math, so I'm like...
What if you vocalized it in like those old modem sounds? And then someone could just take theirs on the other end and translate it into a graph.
That would be super helpful.
Yeah.
Yes. Or if just people could telepathically understand what I'm trying to say.
I mean, if you want to do interpretive dance, I'll try and describe it to them. Okay, it's swiggly, I think. I'm gonna say that was kind of wiggly with a swing. It was swiggly. I don't know if that got the point across.
Well, it has nothing to do with the 1033 program, but hey, thanks for being there. Okay, so between January and March of 2021, roughly $34 million worth of military gear was sent to police via the 1033 program. In between July and September of 2020, which was really, if you think about it, this was some of like the height of the uprisings across the country. So, someone like Trump was certainly on the side of quote unquote law and order. During that time, however, the transfer of military gear to police was only $25 million. I say only, but that's still fucking horrific. But it's still $9 million less of military gear than in the first quarter of 2021. So basically, and now between April and June, that has gone down. That has gone down from $34 million to $18 million worth of military equipment. But yeah, that's a hell of a 2021 already, folks.
But he's kicking, yeah. I mean, he's kicking Trump's ass
Totally.
in terms of amount of military gear given to cops.
Absolutely.
Over the first few months of his administration.
And I'd also just like to point out the kind of weapons we're talking about. So among the and this is taken from Speaking Security, which is a great Substack by Steven Semler. And
I found Steven Semler's work and this article at radindymedia.com. Where did you find it? Because that's where I found it.
That's where I found it.
Oh,
because
yeah.
you know what?
I
find
find
all
stuff.
the breaking news at radindymedia.com.
You know what's nice about radindymedia.com is it's free and we made it.
Wouldn't it be nice if all ads were like that? You know what's great about Nestle is that it makes us a shit ton of cash and we use slave labor. So and it tastes like ass. So among the military grade equipment, the most common items transferred from military to police, that's literally like local police we're talking about, were high capacity magazines for either assault rifles or submachine guns.
Really needed with like traffic stops. Like when somebody's brake light is out, you really want to have at least, I'd say, 900 rounds ready to go.
Yeah. Also
loitering. Sometimes someone, one of those guys that he kind of sleeps there too. So he's got his sleeping bag out at his feet and he's hanging outside of a 7-Eleven and, and asking if somebody will get him a Slurpee because it's a hot day. That guy, you want to have at least a couple of grenade launchers to tell him to move along. Move along, sir. Move along.
Or you could have an MRAP.
There
were MRAPs that were also in this, this care package from the military to police departments. That also included 18 unmanned ground vehicles, which I don't even know what the fuck that means, but it sounds terrifying. So this is just, some of the little accoutrement that your local police now have thanks to Biden.
Well, and to me, this is where you see the truth. You can listen to them say all these garbage words. Trump's lying his way. Biden and them are lying in their way. Blah, blah, blah. But this is where you see the truth, that despite the fact that Biden and the Democrats gave lip service to Black Lives Matter, while the Republicans were saying the Black Lives Matter movement is, atrocious and they're criminals and blah, blah, Democrats gave it lip service. Yet when Biden gets into office, because the ruling elite under Trump or under Biden wants to protect themselves against those people rising up, whether it's rising up for black rights or rising up for equality or rising up for against the prison state, whatever it is. They feel threatened, and so they want more cops, which we've also talked about Biden increasing by millions of dollars certain cop hiring programs, not decreasing them, increasing them, and increasing military gear to cops, because the truth is the ruling elite are now more worried that people could rise up and demand things. Mm-hmm. And so the bullshit about Democrats caring about Black Lives Matter is, it turns out it's bullshit. So.
Breaking news.
The bullshit is bullshit.
Indeed. So yeah, if you'd like to read that article and see the graph, please check that out at radndmedia.com.
You know what else I like about radndmedia.com? I like this because I can do the dumb spoken words ads that I've never done, but it's for something we created. So.
That's actually useful to society.
You know what else I like about it is you get a free mattress with every time you use the site. But also the site automatically updates every day. And so it's at least twice a day. It's giving you, maybe more, it's giving you new articles. So you just keep going back, once a day or something. Just check it out.
It's a beautiful thing.
So, on to a little more fire.
Yeah, that's just the fucking theme for this.
Well, it is. This is the week of July 4th, so these are kind of natural fireworks. Natural fireworks.
Yeah, fuck July 4th, by the way. So, if you'd like to hear more about July 4th, then go back and check out our live stream from this past Sunday, July 4th. And you'll hear me wax, well, not very poetic, but talk about why July 4th is some bullshit. Yeah. So, but that aside, this story is, you may have seen the video because it's fucking terrifying. It literally looks like, in the movie Legend, like hell, the way that hell looks.
I don't know that movie.
That's old school. It's fucking wonderful. Anyway, but it like Dante's Inferno, all of these stories that deal with like the entrance to hell, the gates of hell. This is what that looked like. The Gulf of Mexico was literally on fire this past week because a pipeline ruptured. Because that's something that pipelines fucking do. And this one just happened to rupture under the Gulf of Mexico and caused a giant fireball that, again, just legit looks like the gates of hell. And
literally, it looks like the Gulf of Mexico is is a boiling lava pit.
Yeah, and of course this prompted a lot of...
And they've got their little hoses from their ships, and they're like, it'd be like taking a squirt gun out to like a barbecue grill while it's raging and just being like...
I know. When I saw a great meme this past weekend that just had a picture of that giant fireball and those people like basically spritzing it, and like the various boats. It was like recycling, taking shorter showers, taking the bus to work, and then the giant fireball in the middle was like actually addressing the destruction of capitalism. And it's so true, right? It's like here, the agony of climate chaos is laid on the shoulders of us people, which again, like, yes, you shouldn't be wasteful. Like, don't just fucking like buy a bunch of plastic and then throw it away because you think it's fun. Like, don't be a dick. But if we don't address the fact that there are 100 companies that are responsible for 70% of all emissions in the world, that the U.S. military is the largest single emitter of greenhouse gases in the world, equal to that of 140 countries, not countries' militaries, but countries. If we don't address these issues, then it doesn't fucking matter how many reusable totes you have, how many straws you don't use. Like, these are issues that have to be dealt with on a systemic level.
It reminds me of I saw the package in Bed Bath Beyond for a metal straw to, so you're not being wasteful. But it's a collapsible metal straw that's made out of magnets, so it magnetically adheres together when you want it to. But then it goes in a little plastic case that it comes with it. So there you have more plastic in with the metal straw. And then it comes with a little keychain. So you got the more shit there that goes with the plastic, with the metal straw. And then all of that is inside packaging that is just heavy, thick plastic covering the whole package. And it's like, this is good for the environment. And what do you want to bet that 70% of people buy that straw, use it, for a week or two, and then either lose it or throw it out or just, leave it in a drawer or whatever. Yeah. And so it's like the 7 straws you saved during the time the average person had that did not even compare with the amount of waste to create this magical metal straw magnetometer fucking shit.
My question was there also a nail file? Because I like my straws to have a nail file, a bottle opener.
We need to talk to the Swiss. They'll put that stuff in there for us.
Yeah, no, this is it's fucking horrifying, and this comes, of course, as Biden's administration has expressed support for the Line 3 pipeline. This comes as pipeline projects like DAPL continue to operate even illegally without the proper permits. And I saw another meme that said, we need to accept these kind of things will happen because we need that fuel so that you can get to that job that you hate every day. That's why we have to accept these kind of horrific disasters and catastrophes.
The people that scream at you when they see you post something about climate change, they're like, how do you get to work? You probably take a fucking car, huh? Look at you.
It's like, no, I take a fucking hovercraft. Of course, I don't have a car, but yeah, when I've taken a Lyft, which runs on gasoline. I've taken buses that run on, quote unquote, natural gas, which is, which they get via fracking. I
bet you wear clothes too,
dude.
Hypocrite. People at Occupy have laptops. What are they talking about?
I actually had I did a Black Friday bit about how, like, just don't fucking buy anything. And then somebody's comment on the video was, well, why are you wearing clothes then? And I was like, first of all, I feel like if I were a dude, you probably wouldn't have written that. And secondly, because I think that we shouldn't have legitimate holidays to the gods of consumerism means that I want to be a nudist. What? The fuck?
Right. And because you don't think that there should be this level of consumerism means that you think no one should have ever purchased anything.
Right. Exactly. It means that I think that the only way to be a good person is to exist entirely outside the confines of capitalism. And if you ever buy anything, you're a fucking hypocritical asshole and you need to die.
You can't point out the harms of market economics unless you're naked, okay? I think that just goes without saying. So listen, unless you are full frontal, I am not going to listen to your criticisms of market economics. And it's like, yeah, well, here's the thing. If someone were fucking full-on nude, I don't think you'd actually listen to their criticisms of market economics.
Very true. Very true.
Well, he's a purist. One other point before we wrap up this story is just that these pipelines, this latest one that's on fire in the Gulf of Mexico, and of course the Deepwater Horizon that was the most catastrophic thing we'd ever seen. From the beginning, these were all lies. Mm-hmm. They knew they couldn't actually make these pipelines, deep water pipelines in general, never leak, never catch on fire, never collapse. It was all going to go perfect. There would never be problems or accidents. And if there were, they would clean them up with their fucking paper towels and their little booties that they put on their shoes, and it would be fine. And they'd Windex the Pelican, and then all is right. It's like, no, it's all lies. From day one, they knew that they would, they'd get tons of oil out of these deep water fucking pipelines, but they'd also have times where it all goes spectacularly wrong and dumps crazy amounts of oil into the ocean, and no one knows how to stop it, or it catches on fire, or whatever else. And they knew that would happen. But here's the thing, it's worth it. It's worth it for them. And so the key was to create the propaganda that shit doesn't happen, and that they know how to deep water drill. And they created a whole fucking mythos around it about, like, you know, people like glorified it, like, ooh, look at the technology. They're able to drill in the deep water, and look how brilliant they are. No, they actually don't know how to. They just know how to fucking try and drill in the deep water and watch everything go wrong and make a lot of money in the process.
Yeah, absolutely. So just so that we're not all doom and gloom and the gates of hell and shit.
We'll leave on a positive here.
Leave it on a high note. Yeah, well, if you haven't watched Seinfeld, that sounded odd, but George, leaving on a high note. And if you haven't watched Seinfeld, come on, just like it's an important part of your education vis-a-vis TV shows.
It's a nice TV show because it is for white people living in New York City who barely ever even encounter people who are not white. And because Jerry Seinfeld's comedy, which was influential on me when I was, 15, never addresses any of the actual wrongs or problems in society. It focuses on the hyper, particulate matters. It's
a show about nothing.
Well, that's why they initially called it a show about nothing, but it ended up having actually large conflict in every episode. So he focuses on those little things. Someone didn't say thank you, or he doesn't know how to behave at a funeral or whatever. He focuses on those little things, and thereby can get away with never dealing with any of the wrongs of society. Right. So Seinfeld is a great escapist show, which is why I watch it for escapism, because you never had, like, at no point are they, and in fact, in the earliest episodes, like maybe the first 3 or something, they actually had Elaine as kind of a peacenik, like environmentalist.
Oh, that's right. She wanted to save the rainforest.
She wanted to save the rainforest. She was concerned about people throwing stuff away or littering or whatever. But that went completely at odds with the entire world they were trying to create, which was these people don't give a shit about anything, and they're upset that they got 10 punches on their sandwich card, and the place won't give them a free sandwich. Like, and it fit with a time in America where there was so many people living that way, and many of them are still trying to live that way, where it's like, look, the way we live has no implications or ramifications on anything else, and we can just be upset that guy didn't say hello to us in the hallway. Like, that's our peak problem for the week.
Right.
And it's interesting because it is a complete escapism, and that's kind of how American society, much of it, I get there were always poor people, there were always just people persecuted, so I'm not saying a lot of society wasn't living that way, but for the people that were kind of in the middle and upper classes, that's how they were functioning, was as if their only problems are these tiny little things, and they are not causing any harm to anyone else in the way they live. And I feel like, the stuff we're talking about, the fires in California, et cetera, is those people, middle and upper class, being thrust, whatever remains of the middle class, being thrust into this reality. And kids especially, meaning under I don't know what I call kids now, under 30. Kids get it now. Like, even if they have parents who don't understand it, they're like, our society isn't going to work anymore much longer. Like,
yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, there's this meditation app that I sometimes use, and there's legit a section that's just for climate anxiety. And that's super fun. I mean, it's something that we talk about in organizing spaces too, not least of all, folks who are doing specifically environmental work, is this feeling that, holy shit, if our specific tree sit or our specific camp gets raided, like, then we've lost the day, and like climate chaos will take hold. And of course that's not true. Like, people on the front lines are like the absolute badasses of this world. But you can't help but feel that way. That climate anxiety is so acute. And of course that exists in people who aren't on the front lines too. It exists in people who just notice, holy fuck, today is really hot. And when I was a kid, it wasn't this hot. I still remember I laughed at my grandmother when I was younger because she said, it was a particularly like set of windy days in Sweden. And she lived up on a fucking mountain, so it was like very obvious when it was windy. And she was standing in the doorway and she was like, it was never this windy when I was a kid. And I just laughed because I was like, what an odd thing to say.
For a kid, it sounds like your grandma's a lunatic.
Right.
Yeah. It'd be like, there weren't this many hats when I was a child.
Right.
Like something like that. You're just like, what?
But then I got older and I started doing more research and I was like, oh yeah, no, she was right, because shit, like even wind, even the fact that it's like, you might have noticed if you've traveled on a plane in the past like 10 years versus the previous 10, there's been a lot more turbulence because it's a fuck ton more windy, because that's one of the side effects of climate change.
Right, because when you have more extreme temperatures, then the wind is going to move with more force because temperature is what causes wind in the first place. Differences in temperature. So
right. Yeah. So all of that to say that, this shit is clearly real. And I think particularly for young people, a lot of the ones that I've seen at protest or on the front lines in general, have a lot like of that anxiety that, I didn't have climate. I had other kinds of anxiety as a child. I did not have climate anxiety.
But so to sum up this spectacular tangent.
Sorry.
What?
Sorry.
No, I meant mine.
I meant me talking about my grandmother for like no specific reason.
No, I love your tangents. I was talking about my spectacular Seinfeld tangent. For those who want to use it for escapism, I think it's great in that area. If that's what you're using it for, like watching a sports match or something, like, hey, I can watch this guy kick this ball and not think about the world for 2 hours. And then I'm going to get back to work thinking about how I'm going to make, this place better for people to live and people to coexist. And so I get that. We all need that.
Absolutely. So again, circling back to what we said like 10 minutes ago, ended on a high note. So the Bahalia connection, which was a proposed pipeline, roughly a 50-mile pipeline, crude oil pipeline that was slated to go across a pristine drinking water aquifer, also was going to cross that aquifer in an active earthquake zone. Cool. So that has actually been canceled. The company, Bahalia Connection LLC, announced late last week that it was no longer pursuing the project, primarily due to lower U.S. oil production resulting from the COVID-19 pandemic.
Also the fact that we're steadily switching away from oil, not quick enough, but these companies their business models are not as easy as they used to be. Like it's not just all oil makes money now. It's getting complicated for them, which is the goal.
Right. And of course, the way that this company said, put it in their press release was that, we're looking forward to new projects and other pathways to basically destroy the fucking environment and ensure that there's no livable future. But if you ever look at like these, if you look at Dapple or Mountain Valley Pipeline or any of these websites, they all have like fucking pictures of like trees and waterways and like the things that they destroy. It would be like if Jeffrey Dahmer had a website and it was a picture of a bunch of like smiling people on it. It'd be like, what the fuck is that? Anyway. But there was another point that I wanted to bring up in connection with this pipeline that's now dead, which is fucking awesome. First of all, huge props to the Memphis CAP, which was an organization to stop the pipeline that was black-led, Memphis Community Against the Pipeline, MCAP. And it was led by black organizers and black residents because this pipeline was slated to go through Memphis and northern Mississippi, but predominantly in areas that are black residents. So, for instance, the water aquifer serves predominantly black residents in Memphis, that part of Memphis, and of course, just like Dapple. A land agent for the pipeline had stated that the company chose to site the pipeline in this particular area called Boxtown because it is, quote, the point of least resistance.
They actually admitted it.
They actually admitted it. The only thing they didn't say was, yeah, we just don't like black people. We don't care. But they said it without saying it, right? So this is a huge win, not just against environmental destruction, but also against environmental racism. And I think, this is also a powerful moment to recognize how often those two intersect. Because again, like I said, Dapple is another one of those examples. The Bayou Bridge Pipeline in Louisiana, which is really the tail end of Dapple, is another example of that. It goes through predominantly black and brown neighborhoods. So these are aspects and intersections that we really should look at when we talk about the issue of climate chaos as well. But
so yet another pipeline stopped.
Woo!
Pretty impressive. I feel like we've covered a pipeline being stopped like several times in the past few months.
I know, which makes me so fucking happy. Huge props to MCAP, the Memphis Community Against the Pipeline, for their tireless work in fighting this pipeline and environmental racism. And fucking woohoo!
And we've got a lot of other examples of activists, protesters having an impact, being out there on the front lines over at, what's that site again? radindiemedia.com. That's right. I'm just trying to remember. Oh, that's right, because they have all the radical indie media over there. radindiemedia.com. Check it out. Let us know what you think. And also, do you feel like you got $1 out of this episode? I hope you did. I hope you did. And if you did, go to liberapay.com/Lee Camp. Become a member over there. Liberapay, liberapay.com/Lee Camp. And radindiemedia.com and Eleanor's music video. If you still haven't seen it, you're out of your goddamn mind. It's at artkillingapathy.com, as well as the album that goes with it. And if you need a little help, need a little assistance, email commentcensored@protonmail.com. The average we've been able to hook up people who are struggling has been about $80. So that's commentcensored@protonmail.com. Did I miss anything?
I think that's it.
All right.
Until next time, folks, stay safe and act out.
Keep fighting.